first identify yourselves so we know not to attribute the wrong person to the wrong thing.
Okay.
So.
Right. Well, I'm Graham, the guitar player.
Yes.
And I'm Damon, the singer.
And I'm Dave, the drummer.
And I'm Alex James, bass player.
And it's Blur in its totality. Unlike earlier this morning.
Unlike earlier this morning.
And this is just really relaxed.
It was Blur in its atonality.
We'll just talk and see what's going on. Now I have to get my wits about me with this record now. Which when I first listened to it, man, I was really, I don't want to say blown away because it sounds like trivial.
You can.
But
you can.
It made a definite impression on me. It blew me away, man.
Excellent.
It was very. I don't know. I left this. I wanted to hear more after the first track started. I wanted to hear more. It was very enticing. Unlike, it was unlike anything that had been done. Although it felt like I've heard it
before.
Not all before, but
no. I think that was the intention of it. It wasn't. I think that's what we. That's one of our traits as a band is we do have that strange mixture of sounding as though you've heard it before and having no explanation why you feel that about it. But I think it's just the way that how we work in the studio and how we work as a band. We always think when we're going to make a song, we get key points. Like, for example, we've just done a track which is a disco track, so we wanted a sort of Duran Duran bass line and a sort of a house drum beat, and
a housey
the attitude of it with the keyboards should be sort of early 80s, and so we put things together in that way. It's quite analytical in that sense. I mean, the actual the chemistry of making music is obviously entirely different to that, but the process is quite sort of defined.
Well, unlike some other people who go into a project, you know what you want to achieve. You have, dare I say, a concept in mind.
Yeah.
For what you want to do, and that's nowadays concepts are quite dangerous things to have.
Well, yeah, because it's sort of meatloaf territory, isn't it? Really.
Exactly.
I like meatloaf.
But I mean, he's made a brilliant '90s album, really, in the sense that it's Bat Out of Hell too. It for me is the perfect cynical sort of comeback album.
From hell.
From hell.
Come back from hell. But having all together now, having an idea and wanting to do something, not as just as a track, but as a record as a whole.
Yeah.
And coming at what you want to do, the single concept, in many different ways on each different song, although it still has a continuity throughout, achieving what you said. I don't know if it's that familiarity or
deja vu.
Yeah, well.
That's just. I suppose that's just that's it, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah. Well, if I should be so bold, but what was the concept? If I can get you to articulate. For me, listening to it, I don't know if it really makes much of a difference.
Space pirates.
Space pirates.
It
makes much difference if you say what the concept.
No,
is.
I don't think it should really. I think it's very open to
time bandits.
It's not a concept album. It's become an incredibly meaningless concept. I think it means sort of a record made about 1970 by lots of smashed out hippies just jamming, man, sort of around a concept.
Indeed, but you did take sounds and uses of popular culture, not just pop music and harmonies and phrases, but certain things that that you can identify to a culture at a certain time, at a certain place, with a certain people, which for Americans aren't those particular people, because it has that. Some songs have that seaside kind of thing. Others have the.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, having visited Asbury Park, you know, I think there's quite a lot of similarity between, especially seasides. You know, it's extraordinary. That's got exactly the same sort of deathly stillness that. Yeah, I mean, if anyone has been there, I think they know what I mean by that.
But coming, I mean, the use of this I don't know, musicology, as I like to think about it, as capturing, using a format not only just as some people do, is just to retro, as to capture a vibe, man, or because it sounds cool, but to actually utilize that to make a statement about something else in a contemporary way. I mean, it's extremely effective.
Well, I mean, that's.
You seem to have grasped the plot magnificently.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I'm
we don't have to say anything here, really.
well, Mike. Unfortunately, I'm.
Carry on.
I'm supposed to be inspiring you to talk about it, but.
Well, I think, you know, our sort of firm belief is, if we're talking about trying to get some kind of, you know, message across, is that it's going to take quite a while for the, you know, the references and the language we're using to really sort of start to really translate to more than just a sort of cult. And especially here, it's very, we're a cult band, I suppose. So people do come and see us, but only from out of the mainstream sort of thrust of the music.
Well, your first record
was the opposite.
Exactly. And now coming out with this record and playing shows to people.
Weirdly, playing shows to more people have come to see us this time. Which I can't really work out, really, because I suppose it's just word of mouth from, you know. And I like that at this time, you know, it's sort of. I mean, we've just done the Conan O'Brien show, and I suppose that will sort of really help. But it's the way that we want to do it in America, because it's so easy to have your message annihilated through MTV and through just a massive campaign, and it really damages people. That's what I sort of. How many bands just sort of have these very genuine sort of ideals, and they go through the whole machine, and at the end of it, they've gone absolutely nutty. You know, and it seems they only seem to last one or two albums now before everything collapses. And the reason why that happens is because, you know, it is so dreadfully cynical. So you really have to preserve a sort of sense of who you are, which is why we made this album, I think.
It's definitely a bold statement, as a very, very confident record. There's a lot of authority in its presentation.
we had to be like that, because literally, you know, with the exception of people close to us, everyone was saying, you know, don't make this record. You're really shooting yourself in the foot, and make something that's more, you know, less coded and more accessible. You know, because you're in danger of, you know, destroying everything that you started with the first album. And so we did have to sort of really say, look, this is what we're making. We're not mad. You know, it will make sense eventually. And they're going, no, it won't. You're mad. And
we know we're the record company.
Yeah. And so, you know, we became quite sort of, you know, obsessed. And that's probably why it is quite sort of aggressive in that sense of really sort of trying to make its mark.
Now, the birth of this record, did the concept come from some songs, or did the songs come from...
No, there were a few, when we came back from America last year, there were sort of a few key songs on there, like for Sunday Sunday being, I suppose, one of them, and it just seemed to encapsulate how we were feeling it, in the sense that, it had this our message implanted in the lyrics and sort of and musically, you know, we really wanted to find some sort of basis to spread our wings from.
And it is very musical as a record. There's some, although some things are quite simple and using simple structures and things, there's some sophisticated things as well happening and incorporated along with it that are more than just the popular or pop structures and songs that seem to be happening. There's I don't know, there's dissonance going along with happiness in a theme. There's
sweet and sour, really. I mean, that's what, you know, that's what we're in it for, you know. I suppose that's a sort of quite a classic art school orientated trait in sort of British music, you know, that sort of happy and sad. Started obviously by Ray Davies being, you know, he perfected it, I think.
Where am I? Also, I mean, and not just musical. It took me a while to try to figure out the relationship between, it's odd, music and lyrics, and then the person singing the lyrics, and the connection between the three. It's storytelling on this record, and although some of them are in the first person, it's still storytelling, and there's a disconnection with the actual act that's happening in the songs.
Well, it's quite cynical, you know, but I think that's how we feel. I'm certainly a very cynical person. I don't make any pretense about, you know, quite sort of hopeless.
But the songs aren't hopeless.
No. Well, not. I don't think we're hopeless about making music. And I think that's another thing about us is that, you know, we're really more interested in making music than following a sort of the rock ideal. You know, now we do overuse that word, and we're always rude about it, when in fact that's exactly what we are, a rock band, I suppose. But I think there is a distinction between, you know, because we'd have so many different styles that we play in, and on the next album it'd be even more, you know, and so I think I've said it before, we're sort of environmentalists, really.
That's an interesting word. Surprising, actually. Wow. Moving into the project and capturing this cynicism and environmentalism, and having been obviously inspired to do something that one is going to be risky, and passionately wanting to do that, moving into the studio and working with Stephen. What was
Stephen, as we call him?
Well, I mean, what was his take on the whole thing? Because he produced the last record as well.
I don't know what his view of it is, but he's what do you think his view of what we do is?
I don't know, really. I think he enjoys the way things come together more than anything else.
He's a very musical person as well. He likes.
He's very proud of For Tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, he just likes things to work musically. You know, I don't think he's not really as pretentious as we are. You know, I mean, it's quite interesting, really. It's a credit to him that he can sort of help produce an album like ours, and then sort of also produce a sort of virtually a mainstream album with the Cranberries, which are proving to be here. You know, and then having worked with the Smiths and Juristy Column, and no, he's one of the best British style producers around. He really is, because he just sort of he's passionate about sort of keeping things tidy and control.
He's a gardener.
We're his
passionately tidy, that man. He really is.
We're its excuse to be a bit weird, really, I think.
I mean, he's got the most sort of extensive collection of crisp white Levi jeans.
Because it would take to bring this project to where it is now. Will take a complete understanding of what you wanted to achieve. All the sounds. I mean, there's a lot of sound on this record, in different kinds of sounds, and to get one of them wrong, because they're all going to achieve a certain emotional effect from the listener. And to have that understanding of what the sounds are supposed to be and how to achieve that effect was extremely well done.
Well, he's very good at translating people's ideas and making sure that when he works with us, we don't see he doesn't sort of really change anything. He just helps us along. He really doesn't sort of have any sort of he's got certain little things which he sort of insists on trying to do, which we sometimes say, no, that's rubbish. Don't do that.
Oh, well. No, but how do you approach, and collectively, how do you come up with the little bits that go into making the whole?
Well,
No, you can't just sit down and say, I'm going to write a song about...
It's an extremely...
whatever's appropriate,
It's an extremely organic process, everything grows.
So I'm going to go and write a song about something and do.
Well,
entirely.
That's what I want to know.
They're not songs that I don't sort of sit up all night, with a raging... raging was the wrong word to start off. But I just don't, I don't get really depressed and sing these songs from my soul, really.
They're very sincere and they're integral as well, though. They're passionately done from the voice of the person singing.
Oh, I much prefer to be somebody else and sing about. I've really got into this idea of singing it quite grandly, and it's not me singing; it's a sort of somebody in a suit singing. Well, I suppose it just comes from, having been in love with theatre and just same old things. But that's what we have, and not many bands at the moment have. Is that that there is a lot of the same sort of ideas as worked in theatre in our music.
That's perfectly valid, and you almost seem not embarrassed but ashamed to say that.
No, I'm not ashamed. It's just no, I'm not ashamed at all. I'm probably just sort of no.
Well, maybe you aren't, but it seems that maybe other people might think you should be. That you're not, your soul isn't in it at every second. And it is, but it's in a different manifestation.
Yep, I reckon, definitely.
Which is, I think it's important for people to understand how things come together and are done.
Yeah, I suppose it's something that we really talk about a lot. Yeah. But I know we have quite a different way of making records than most people. Which
allows you to put out a record like your last and a record like this, and God knows what the next record's going to be like.
Disco record.
That's absolutely a positive thing.
Yeah, well, I that's what we wanted to do. We just would have been very bored if we'd have just
made sides 3 and 4 of Leisure.
Or just become a band that could only play in one style, because that was really what, that was the true thing for them. Because I hate the way that people don't sort of cross-dress musically. I think it's disgusting.
Looking back on the first record, then, in hindsight, which might not be a great thing to do at this point, but where were you then, and where are you now, as far as what your ideas of making music are? Do you have a better?
That was leisure, and that I had to get a lot of what I was listening to at college out of my system. Really, that's why there's a lot of quite obviously similar guitar work to a lot of people I was listening to at college. And now it was just an experiment. It was a learning process. The first album, and I think this one is just more experienced.
It is about getting things out of our system, really, isn't it? As soon as we listen to something, we have to immediately go and sort of
steal all the best bits.
Yeah, do something with it.
Well, that's interesting, though, because the first record was very well done as well. Is that bleeding through?
How many stations are there in this building?
There's one.
Someone talking really fast.
There's one country station here, but that's actually my boss putting together, and we're the network. We do a whole bunch of things. He's putting together a Christmas feed with all different Christmas music on it for rock radio stations. But he's dubbing something at high speed. But no, I mean, and it's interesting, to get things out of your system. But that thing that you want to get out of your system, at first it was just, I don't know, you might not have known that this was going to be a career, or did you, when you were working with those things, those styles that you had been influenced by?
I think we denied having any influences, really. We were far too proud. We just thought
we don't have influences.
We had visceral genius.
Anything. Blah, 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 blah. And then we realised that was a bit silly, really, and irresponsible. And we'd better knuckle down, do some hard work.
And you have.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anybody taking on a more in-depth project than putting something like this together. Did you know it was going to be a lot of hard work from the outset?
It doesn't feel like hard work.
No.
Really.
No?
It's good fun, isn't it?
No, but it's great having that sort of desire to make another thing and really see it as a thing, as opposed to just a CD or a piece of vinyl. It's a thing which is sort of, it's going to encapsulate the whole way you conduct your life for the next year and a half or whatever, and then be associated with you for the rest of your life. We're very lucky.
I'm sure there's a lot of.
Should make the most of it.
I'm sure there's a lot of bands out there that are so afraid of being happy because their first record was.
I know, so unhappy, and everyone liked them for their. I know. Well, there are quite a few of them around in Britain, and they don't tend to last very long.
It's true. That's maybe why this record was so great for me when I heard it, was that there was actually something being done. I mean, there was things happening, and it was immediate, and it was new, and basically what you hear now is not. It's there's unique approaches to different things, but it seems to be more or less. Nobody seems to be breaking any new ground.
Well, they haven't. They haven't in. I just don't think that many bands really have that motivation anymore. And when our first album, we didn't either. I can understand how you can get into that way of thinking, but we lost all our money to our first manager. He ripped us off terribly. We found ourselves becoming increasingly unfashionable after the first album. We had a nightmare of a second tour in America, and just a whole heap of shit, basically. And we were sort of at the bottom of this rubbish pile, and there was nothing to do but to just go for it, really, you know. In that good old way.
Just go for it.
Just go for it.
And so you did.
Oh, so we did.
We're just constantly striving to be more important than we already are.
You know, and it sometimes sort of amazes me, really, when people say, well, you know, you could be doing so many other things and becoming more successful, you know, and musically. And, you know, why do you make videos that are sort of slightly perverse? Or, you know, and while just, you know, I think there's a few people who sort of in our record company who've been with us since the beginning, and they sort of, I think they get quite frustrated when they know that we're sort of seemingly always been slightly perverse. And but that's because we're actually arrogant enough to really believe that, given a sort of a period of time and a body of work, you know, we will be as big as REM and bands like that, you know, and completely rule, man.
No, that brings up an interesting point as well. I mean, how do you personally measure success of what you do?
I think the success of what you do is the sort of TV.
Yeah. It's just little things that make you happy. I think that's what keeps you going. I mean, I suppose we've just done a
and it's
TV
also
thing,
the fallout from when you set your little bomb off, you know, and the longer the fallout lasts, and the sort of the way you see it entering people's lives and actually having an effect on them is how I think you measure success, you know. And hopefully it would last for sort of years and years and years. Whereas I know the first one, it sort of went.
You know, it was a fashion album, the first one, and fashion albums are a tragic concept. Really,
it's true. Well, is there two measures of success? Is there one for the public and one for before the record's released and when you're finished with it and you sit back and you listen to it?
No, I don't think it's very hard when you've finished a record to really know exactly if you've done something worthwhile. You know, it takes a long time, I think, to sort of get a vague notion of
and when you've been talking about it for a year, you absolutely haven't got a clue what it's really like. Because you're so completely steeped in it.
Really, sort of apart from playing it all the time live, is that sort of cover and the title Modern Life's Rubbish, and they still please me, both the image and the title, you know, and that sort of.
Because I see the whole music as a process of communication, and if you're trying to communicate to yourself, then when you finish with a record you can say, oh, it's great, I love it. If you're trying to make music to communicate to an audience, then obviously you have to wait for an audience to...
Yeah, I know, and it does take time, and it really has taken time, this, but it's sort of been, you know, really worthwhile sort of playing the same set and allowing people to sort of get into it slowly, because it has.
Do you approach it as a communication vehicle?
Definitely now. Yeah.
When did you realize that is?
Well, I suppose really when people started actually mouthing all the words and sort of playing the characters. You know, you can see that they're just sort of, they've got their own idea of what's going on, and that's all you can ever sort of hope to give people, really.
It is quite a really dramatic thing that you do, anyway. There's plenty of elements of drama. Let me ask in there a question. Did the phone ring at all in there? No? Okay, great. Thought she was going to come back, and I haven't.
Champagne.
Yeah, right.
Oops.
No, I look at this as an opportunity for you to, not to sell your record, but to...
Bizarre thing, though, you see, with this promoting it this time, we haven't seen anything as a sort of as an opportunity to sell the record. We've actually been doing it like this television program today. We did it because we thought that was part of what the whole thing was about, as opposed to, I mean, I know that might sound a bit crappy, but it is true, you know. More interested in the actual performance and the communication than the selling of it. And I'm not being earnest about it at all. It's just sort of, you know, it's just we were on a chat show, and that was just seeing it in context of all other chat shows that have ever gone by, and all the ones I've seen, and you know, all that archive footage, and how sort of clearly it sort of sent signals from another time, and it's wonderful. It's sort of everything you do and everything that gets recorded is a wonderful part of time travel, which is what we do so well, really, as human beings. We are becoming sort of arch time travel beings.
It would have been great if you were across the street at the theater across the street, which is the Ed Sullivan Theater, which is much more easy to transport yourself back.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have sent us a flashy limo, though, would they?
No,
If we'd have done that.
Wow. Now I wrote down like a whole bunch of words on this paper and threw them out immediately. I don't know why. Now, I brought up the communication thing and the audience, and we were talking a little about feedback from the audience. Is there a different? Because it's a very British-sounding record, using lots of references to things British and experiences British, and actually utilizing music that is British.
Well, it's
Is there a different? Coming from and mostly being heard in the U.S. This program, is there something that will be different for an American audience?
Well, I think that's what I mean about sort of giving something which people can interpret, you know, and there's no problem in that. You know, interpretation is obviously going to be different. So the character Colin Zeal is different to a North American, you know. But he's still a Colin Zeal sort of person, really.
That's funny. Wow. But no, going to that thing where I was saying it's very British. Important to you to make it so.
It was at that time very, yeah. I mean, and sort of it. Now we know we've got that, and that's part of what we are. We can sort of just develop.
Yeah, well, you already said it's about getting it out of your system.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that while you're getting it out of your system, you embrace the parts that you want to carry on to the next project and forward.
Yeah.
And it's just really odd for me too. I mean, where does one project end and the next project start?
Well, this one really ends tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because it's the end of the world tour. So
Really?
This is the penultimate day of this project.
But the other one's already started.
Yeah, and we've already, you know.
And that's right. You have a disco thing in the works. Somebody said.
Yeah, done, and we've got quite a lot for another album, and we'll keep on working on it when we get home and in the early part of next year, and then it'll be a whole new kettle of fish.
And because it seems so odd for me to be talking to you about this record.
Why?
Well, you're already on to the next thing.
I know, but you know, this is still. We know more about this than we do of the other one, obviously, because we haven't sort of finished it.
When do you know?
But when when do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know when you know. It happens. I think it's when the title to the album appears. You know.
Really?
That really does clinch it.
Because obviously for you it's very important. I've never put much importance on the names of anything, but the title of the. I mean, the more thought goes into the title of the record, then
A lot of thought goes into it, yeah. Blimey.
Huh.
I mean, it's very important.
Far too much, usually.
A lot of agony.
with 4 people contributing.
Agony.
Yeah, definitely.
Because in the music, 4 people can contribute, and you can blend them together. With the title of a record, 4 people contribute.
Well, someone comes up with the title of the record, obviously, but, you know, there are other titles, and it's the one that's chosen out of all of them.
And then, as you said, combining that with...
We all came up with one word.
Huh? No.
They came up with
with the
is.
cover of... No, you're talking about the visual, actual cover of the record and the name of the record, representing what you wanted it to be about.
Yeah.
Being important.
Very important. There's not one thing on that album that isn't absolutely essential.
Down to the chord structures
Yeah.
over the lyrics. Giving that sort of sing-along, play-along feel.
Sing along.
Even
So
though,
we are.
even though there's finger-twisting, minor, diminished chords. Just pick up and hum along.
Well, yeah.
I didn't want to make it...
They're not that
any-
difficult,
No,
though.
it's not really.
Okay.
But I mean, Graham is, you know, sort of very good at what he does, so it's difficult to sort of
Yeah, oh, yeah, it's very...
hold him down and keep him.
It was important to get the chords actually how they are, you know, and not simplify them in any way.
I mean, I think on the next album we might actually score everything. The whole lot,
Put a
from
book.
drum beats to everything, exactly how they were made, sort of, you know.
And have it on CD-ROM so you can...
Yeah.
So you can accept.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, the... What?
Your tape stopped.
No, that's okay. I still have a DAT going.
Ah, okay.
So no, this is interesting what you're saying, how it's important to get the chords out there and that they're not simple. Although, I mean, what I was talking to addressed very briefly is that there are simple things, but there's some dissonance and diminished chords and things to give a certain emotional feel to some things that are simple and ordinary. To go along with the project, the same concept of capturing this
Thing.
This thing. I know, but if it was contemporary and it was a happy song, you could play it a certain, you know, if a straightforward pub song would go a certain way. To add that diminished or that lifted sound or whatever you want to call it, gives it that sense of nostalgia, if you will. And makes it seem, it puts it just that little bit off, so you feel like you're recalling a past experience. And, I don't know.
No, it's important to use chords properly. No one seems to use chords properly anymore.
And no one writes songs on it either.
All sounds the same.
Oh, what do you mean by that? I mean, I don't want...
Well, it's either a major or a minor, isn't it? And there's a pretty limited sort of... you can't really
It's very
get
black and white,
much more
really.
than that emotionally, you know. Oh, it's a sad bit, so it's minor. It's just a little more interesting.
No, I mean, it's interesting to me to make people out there on the other side of that realize that when things are happening, that there's more than just the casual passing chord that went by your hand when you did it, that there's actually a purpose behind what it is you did.
Yeah, but you're a sort of dangerous person for us to talk to, because you're just as happy to sort of analyse the whole thing as we are, you know, and it's like, it's sort of, it's dangerous really, because we could all go and write a book.
It is a pitfall to analyse.
Well, it isn't, but, you know, some of us do and some of us don't. And
but ultimately,
that's just the way we're made.
Ultimately, it gets back to what I said. I mean, does it communicate and express the message? Or
Well, you're right. You picked up on a lot of very key things, you know. But the sort of you know, that you've already, there's already far too much for sort of popular culture to sort of care about, you know.
Well, they shouldn't have to.
No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. It shouldn't. We shouldn't. I don't know.
And when I first put the record on, I didn't at all.
Oh, okay,
either.
fair enough.
It only comes after, you know, sitting down and figuring out why I felt a certain way when I heard a certain thing, or how all the things came together for me, which is what you do. And I don't know, I feel important to talk about just those things. But ultimately, you know, what do we want to say to these crowds of people who are listening to it on the radio? I don't want to bore them with talking about, you know, the chord structure and stuff. So it's always challenging for me to try to...
Well, what I want to say is Modern Life is rubbish, but this album's great.
Well, you know, that just about says it all. And then I can ask you, what do you mean by modern life is, you know, what is modern life? You know, I mean, it gets into
Modern life is misery, basically.
You know, it gets into that standard interview thing, you know. Tell me about the name of your record, you know. And I get really uncomfortable doing that. Because I feel that certain things should speak for themselves.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I don't think we like telling people what things mean. We're more into giving people...
Sometimes it's all you're left to do there, because they really have, you know... I think it's... there's too much telling people what things
more
are,
into giving,
not enough.
Giving people a little bit of space.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about, really.
And that's why, I maybe did a little bit more crazy kind of an interview, because I want to inspire people to actually listen to what's happening on the records. And what I see here is you know, people obviously knowing what they're doing, and then having to come up with, I don't know, because you're put in this situation so often that you have to find a way to present it, which is an interesting position to be put in. I don't know, it's just odd.
It's certainly odd.
It's an odd job you have. I don't know. I wrote down a whole bunch of crap, but I don't feel like it makes any sense anymore.
Oh, you've been talking to Blur.